The coffee stain Olivia Tanner rushed through the crowded hospital corridor, balancing 3 coffees in a cardboard tray while mentally reviewing her patients' charts. After 18 hours on duty, her scrubs were wrinkled, her auburn hair hastily pulled into a messy bun, and dark circles had formed under her warm brown eyes. But Olivia never complained. Nursing wasn't just her profession, it was her calling. Heads up! She called, narrowly avoiding a collision with an orderly. The coffee sloshed dangerously close to the rim of the cups. What Olivia didn't see was the tall figure stepping out of the administrative wing, engrossed in his phone. The impact was instant. Coffee splashed across an impeccably tailored charcoal suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent. Olivia froze, mortified as she looked up to meet the coldest blue eyes she'd ever seen. "I'm so sorry," she stammered, frantically grabbing napkins from her pocket. "I didn't see you there, and I've been awake since yesterday, and—" "It's fine," the man interrupted, his voice surprisingly soft despite his stern expression. Harrison Reed, though Olivia didn't recognize him yet, was used to people fawning over him, making excuses, trying to impress. This woman was just trying to clean up coffee. Harrison gently stepped back. "Please don't worry about it. I have other suits." Of course he did. Olivia noticed his expensive watch, the subtle designer logo on his briefcase. Another wealthy hospital investor or pharmaceutical representative, she assumed. "Let me at least pay for dry cleaning," Olivia insisted, though she wondered how she'd manage it on her tight budget. A hint of amusement crossed Harrison's face. "That won't be necessary, Miss Tanner, Olivia Tanner. Pediatric nurse, 3rd floor," she replied, straightening her posture. "And you are?" The question seemed to surprise him. Harrison hesitated, as if unused to introducing himself. "Reed, Harrison Reed." Olivia nodded politely, not recognizing the name that regularly appeared in technology magazines and financial news. To her, he was just another visitor who happened to be in her way when exhaustion had compromised her coordination. "Well, Mr. Reed, I'm truly sorry about your suit, but I need to deliver what's left of these coffees to my colleagues before our young patients wake up." Harrison watched her hurry away, leaving him standing in the corridor with coffee dripping from his sleeve. People rushed past, none sparing him a second glance. A novel experience for someone whose face regularly appeared on business publications. Later that evening, as Harrison sat in his penthouse overlooking the city, he found himself thinking about the tired nurse with the apologetic smile. In his world of calculated business decisions and strategic relationships, her genuine concern over a ruined suit seemed refreshingly sincere. The next morning, Olivia arrived for her shift to find a package at the nurse's station addressed to Nurse Tanner, 3rd floor pediatrics. Inside was an expensive coffee maker and premium beans with a simple note: "For safer coffee transport. No repayment necessary. HR." Olivia shook her head, baffled by the extravagant gift. She had no idea that Harrison Reed, founder of Reed Innovations and one of the wealthiest entrepreneurs in the country, had personally selected it after reading reviews. Until 2 a.m., or that he had scheduled a follow-up meeting with the hospital board specifically, on a day when she would be working. What Olivia also didn't know was that Harrison, who could have dated celebrities and socialites, couldn't stop thinking about the exhausted nurse who had looked at him without a trace of recognition in her eyes. The first person in years who had seen just a man in a suit, not a fortune. Midnight conversations. 3 weeks after the coffee incident, Olivia found herself in the hospital cafeteria at 2 a.m., slumped over a half-eaten sandwich during a rare break. The pediatric ward had received 3 new patients that evening, all siblings from a car accident, and the emotional weight had left her drained. "Is this seat taken?" Olivia looked up to find Harrison Reed standing before her, holding a tablet and looking surprisingly casual in jeans and a simple button-down shirt. She blinked in confusion. "Mr. Reed, what are you doing here at this hour?" Harrison gestured to the empty chair. "Working on the hospital's new patient monitoring system. The IT team suggested overnight testing would cause minimal disruption." He paused. "And please, it's just Harrison." Olivia nodded, too tired to question further. Well, the cafeteria is pretty much self-service at this hour, but the coffee is decent thanks to your gift. The pediatric staff sends their thanks, by the way. Harrison sat down, setting his tablet aside. How are those children from the accident doing? Olivia's eyes widened. How did you know about them? I overheard the nurses talking. The youngest is struggling, I understand. Something in his voice made Olivia study him closer. There was genuine concern there, not just polite conversation. Milo's only 4. His sisters will recover faster, but he... She stopped herself. Sorry, patient confidentiality. Of course, Harrison nodded. Though I'm funding the new pediatric wing, so technically... Technically nothing. Olivia smiled for the first time that night. Even billionaires don't get special access to patient information. Harrison's eyebrows rose slightly. So you know who I am now. Google exists, Mr. Reed. The nurses were quite excited when they realized whose coffee maker is gracing our break room. Their conversation flowed surprisingly easily after that. Harrison asked thoughtful questions about her work, never once glancing at his phone, a rarity in Olivia's experience with successful people. She found herself sharing her dream of opening a community clinic for underserved neighborhoods. What's stopping you? Harrison asked. Olivia laughed softly. Oh, just the small matter of about $2 million. Hospital politics and finding doctors willing to work for less than their worth. You seem like someone who finds ways around obstacles, Harrison observed. And you seem different from what the business magazines describe, Olivia countered. Harrison stared into his coffee cup. Those magazines see what I let them see. It's easier that way. Easier, maybe. But lonely too, I'd guess. The simple observation caught Harrison off guard. In his world of calculated relationships and strategic partnerships, few people ever considered his emotional state. He looked at Olivia, really looked at her, noticing the compassion in her eyes that extended beyond professional duty. You know, he said quietly, you're the first person in years who's talked to me like a normal human being. Olivia smiled. That's because you are one, despite the fancy suit and billion-dollar company. Their midnight conversation became 2, then 5, then a regular occurrence whenever Olivia worked night shifts. Harrison would appear with interesting teas from around the world or pastries from obscure bakeries, claiming he was in the neighborhood for work, though Olivia suspected the hospital wasn't on his regular route. They spoke about everything and nothing, books they'd read, places they'd seen, childhood memories. Harrison shared stories of building his company from his college dorm room, while Olivia described growing up with her grandmother who had been a midwife in a small town. Neither acknowledged the growing connection between them, this strange friendship between a nurse who lived paycheck to paycheck and a tech mogul whose decisions affected global markets. They existed in a bubble of fluorescent lights and vinyl chairs, where titles and bank accounts didn't matter. One night, as dawn approached, Harrison looked up from their conversation about favorite childhood foods and realized 3 hours had passed in what felt like minutes. Olivia was describing her grandmother's blackberry cobbler with animated hands, a streak of exhaustion still visible beneath her smile. You know, he said when she finished, I haven't told anyone about my mother's terrible cooking in at least a decade. Olivia tilted her head. Who do you usually talk to, Harrison? Really talk to, I mean. The question hung between them, simple yet devastating in its accuracy. Harrison Reed, with his empire of innovation and network of influential contacts, couldn't name a single person. And in that moment of vulnerability, something shifted between them. A recognition that despite all their differences, they had both been looking through the world's chaos for something genuine. Storms and shelter, the storm came without warning. What began as spring showers escalated into devastating floods that overwhelmed the city's infrastructure. The hospital activated its emergency protocols, with all staff called in as casualties mounted. Olivia had been working for 30 hours straight, moving between the emergency department and pediatric ward as needed. Children separated from parents, elderly patients requiring evacuation from flooded nursing homes. The crisis seemed endless. She was checking IV fluids for a sedated child when a familiar voice called her name. Turning, she found Harrison in the doorway, his usually immaculate appearance disheveled, rainwater dripping from his jacket. "Harrison, what are you doing here?" "I've brought supplies," he said simply. "And volunteers. Reed Innovations employees with medical training." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Are you all right? You look exhausted." Something about his concern broke through her professional facade. "The backup generators are struggling. We have critical patients on ventilators, and if power goes—" Harrison's expression shifted to one she hadn't seen before, focused determination without a trace of the careful restraint he usually maintained. "Give me 20 minutes." Before she could respond, he was gone, phone to his ear, speaking rapidly to someone about emergency power solutions and helicopter deliveries. True to his word, 19 minutes later, a team arrived with portable medical-grade generators. Harrison himself returned to the pediatric ward, rolling up his sleeves alongside volunteers to move equipment and assist staff. "You didn't have to do this," Olivia said when they finally had a moment alone in the supply room. "I did," Harrison replied simply. "You were here." The raw honesty in his voice made her heart skip. For weeks, they'd carefully avoided acknowledging whatever was growing between them, maintaining the pretense of coincidental meetings and casual friendship. But now, surrounded by crisis, pretenses seem pointless. "Harrison," she began carefully, "I'm just a nurse." "You're—" "Don't," he interrupted, suddenly looking vulnerable. "Please don't say I'm something more than you." "Not you, Olivia." The intimacy of her name on his lips silenced her. Before either could speak again, an emergency alarm sounded, and they both rushed back to their duties. Through the night, they worked side by side. Olivia witnessed a side of Harrison few ever saw, the man beneath the billionaire facade, carrying children to safety, comforting frightened patients, using his influence to coordinate resources without once mentioning cost or publicity. When dawn broke, the worst had passed. Olivia found Harrison in the hospital courtyard, sitting alone on a bench, staring at his phone. "Bad news?" she asked, sitting beside him. He showed her the screen, news articles already speculating about his presence at the hospital, some suggesting it was a publicity stunt for Reed Innovations' new medical technology division. "Does it matter what they think?" she asked gently. Harrison put the phone away. "It didn't used to. Now I find myself caring what one person thinks." Their eyes met, and Olivia felt the weight of his words. After working through disaster together, seeing each other's true character under pressure, the careful distance they'd maintained seemed absurd. "I should tell you," Harrison said quietly. "I've been coming to this hospital 3 times as often as necessary for the new wing. The board meetings could have been handled remotely." Olivia smiled. "And I may have volunteered for extra night shifts knowing you might appear." Harrison reached for her hand, his first deliberate touch, and the contact sent warmth through her exhausted body. "When this is over," he said, "would you have dinner with me?" "Not in the cafeteria." Olivia looked down at their joined hands, her small, work-roughened fingers against his manicured ones. "Two different worlds. People will talk," she warned. "Let them," Harrison replied, the certainty in his voice sweeping away her hesitation. As the sun rose over their flood-damaged city, something new emerged between them, a connection forged in crisis, built on seeing each other's true selves when facades were impossible to maintain. Whispers and headlines. The photograph appeared in the tabloids 3 days after their first official date. Harrison escorting Olivia into an exclusive restaurant, his hand resting lightly on her lower back. The headline was predictably crude. "Tech billionaire's nurse fetish, Reed slums it with hospital staff." Olivia stared at the magazine her coworker had placed on the break room table, her coffee growing cold beside it. The article described her as plain but serviceable, speculating that Harrison was either having a midlife crisis at 35 or engaging in some elaborate charitable gesture. "Ignore it," advised Teresa, the charge nurse. Yellow journalism at its worst. But the whispers followed Olivia through hospital corridors. Some colleagues were supportive, others suspicious, wondering what she might be gaining from the relationship. Patients' parents sometimes did double takes when they recognized her from the gossip sites. Harrison was furious when he saw the coverage. "My legal team can handle this," he insisted during their phone call that evening. "They've crossed a line. And draw more attention?" Olivia sighed. "Let it blow over, Harrison. It's not the first time people have judged me without knowing me." But the scrutiny intensified. Reporters dug into Olivia's background, publishing unflattering photos from her college years and interviewing distant acquaintances for insider perspectives. One particularly venomous article suggested she was using Harrison to fund her community clinic dreams. That one hurt the most, because the topic of her professional aspirations hadn't come up since they began dating. Olivia had deliberately avoided mentioning it, not wanting Harrison to think she had ulterior motives. 6 weeks into their relationship, at a charity gala Harrison had reluctantly asked her to attend, Olivia overheard a conversation that crystallized her fears. "She's smart." "I'll give her that," said a woman in an evening gown. Unaware, Olivia was behind a decorative column. "Find a billionaire with a savior complex and play the dedicated healthcare worker. Men like Harrison love thinking they're rescuing someone," her companion laughed. 2 months tops before he remembers Sophia Winters is still single. The supermodel? They would make a better match. Olivia slipped away, finding refuge on a deserted balcony. She loved Harrison. The realization had come gradually, but with absolute certainty. She loved his thoughtfulness, his dry humor, the way he listened as if her words were precious. But perhaps these women were right. Perhaps they existed in different realities that could only temporarily intersect. When Harrison found her, he immediately sensed something was wrong. "What happened?" "Nothing," she attempted a smile. "Just needed some air." "Olivia," he took her hands. "Don't shut me out." The tenderness in his voice broke her resolve. "Are we fooling ourselves, Harrison? Look at tonight. I'm wearing borrowed jewelry with my one formal dress while you move through these circles effortlessly. You think this is effortless?" Harrison gestured to the glittering crowd inside. "These people aren't my friends. They're connections, strategic relationships. What we have is real, but sustainable?" Olivia challenged. "The media scrutiny, the assumptions about my motives, the differences in our lives. I don't care about any of that," Harrison insisted. "But I do," Olivia whispered. "I care when people assume I'm with you for your money. I care when they say you could do better. Because sometimes, Harrison, I wonder if they're right." Harrison's expression shifted to something she couldn't read. Before he could respond, his assistant appeared, apologetically mentioning an urgent call from Tokyo. "We'll finish this conversation later," Harrison promised, kissing her forehead before reluctantly leaving. But Olivia had made her decision. She slipped away from the gala, leaving only a note with Harrison's assistant. "Some distances can't be bridged. I'm sorry." The following weeks were the hardest of Olivia's life. She threw herself into work, requested additional shifts, and ignored the pitying looks from colleagues who had seen the gossip sites reporting the breakup. Harrison called and texted repeatedly until she finally asked him to stop, claiming they both needed clean breaks. What Olivia didn't know was that Harrison was working on something that would change everything, not because of his wealth or influence, but because he had finally understood what she needed most. Beyond expectations, the envelope arrived on Olivia's doorstep exactly 1 month after she had walked away from Harrison. No return address, just her name in unfamiliar handwriting. Inside was a single sheet of paper, a property deed for a small medical building in Westbrook, the underserved neighborhood where she had grown up. The deed was in her name. Attached was a business card from Josephine Winters, attorney at law, with a handwritten note. "This is legally yours with no strings attached. The previous owner wishes to remain anonymous. Please call with questions." Olivia's hands trembled. Despite the attempted anonymity, she knew exactly who had done this. The question was why, and what it meant. When she called the attorney, Josephine explained that the property had been purchased through a blind trust. All property taxes were paid for 5 years, and a separate account held modest funds for basic renovations. The donor was explicit, Josephine added. "This is not a gift requiring acknowledgement or reciprocation. It is simply yours to use or sell as you wish." Olivia drove to the address that same afternoon. The building was perfect, a former family practice office with good bones despite its worn appearance, centrally located in a neighborhood where medical services were scarce. Exactly what she had described during those midnight conversations with Harrison. As she stood on the sidewalk, staring at what could become her community clinic, a familiar voice spoke behind her. "The zoning is already approved for medical use." Olivia turned to find Harrison standing there, looking different somehow, more casual in jeans and a simple sweater. Less the polished billionaire and more the man she had fallen in love with. "Why did you do this?" she asked quietly. "Because your dream matters," Harrison replied simply. "Whether or not we're together." Olivia studied his face. "This isn't about buying me back, is it?" "No." He shook his head firmly. "This is about doing something that matters. You taught me that, Olivia. Before you, success was numbers on spreadsheets and recognition from people I didn't even respect." He gestured to the building. "This isn't a grand gesture. It's me finally understanding what's important." "I can't accept something this significant," Olivia protested. "You can," Harrison countered, "because you'll do more good with it than I ever could. If you never want to see me again, the building is still yours. No conditions." Olivia felt tears forming. "I never walked away because I didn't love you, Harrison." "I know," he said gently. "You walked away because you thought our worlds were too different." "But they're not, Olivia. We just approach them differently." He stepped closer, his expression vulnerable in a way she had rarely seen. "These past weeks I've realized something. The world I've built, the company, the influence, all of it, means nothing if I can't share it with someone who reminds me why it matters." "And what matters to you, Harrison?" Olivia asked, her heart pounding. "Authenticity. Purpose." His voice softened. "You." A doctor emerging from the building next door recognized Olivia from her hospital work and waved. Harrison noticed her friendly wave back. "You already know this community," he observed. "I grew up 3 blocks from here," Olivia confirmed. "My grandmother delivered half the babies in this neighborhood before the last clinic closed." Harrison smiled. "So this location is actually perfect." "It's suspiciously perfect." Olivia narrowed her eyes. "How much research did you do?" "Enough," Harrison admitted. "But not to impress you, to get it right." They stood in silence for a moment, the afternoon sun casting long shadows on the sidewalk. "I miss our conversations," Harrison finally said. "I miss the way you see through all my carefully constructed barriers." "I miss you too," Olivia whispered. "Then maybe," Harrison suggested cautiously, "we could try again. Not as a billionaire and a nurse, but as Harrison and Olivia, 2 people who see each other clearly." Olivia looked from Harrison to the building that represented her dream, understanding now that one didn't have to come at the expense of the other. The world would still whisper, headlines would still speculate, but perhaps what mattered was the truth they knew together. "I'd like that," she said, reaching for his hand. 6 months later, the Tanner Community Health Clinic opened its doors with Olivia as its clinical director. Harrison attended the ribbon cutting not as a prominent donor, but simply as the man who held her hand when the cameras weren't watching. Their love story wasn't about wealth rescuing struggle or privilege elevating the ordinary. It was about 2 people who found in each other something, authentic in a world of appearances, a connection that transcended expectations and redefined what truly mattered. When Harrison proposed the following spring, he didn't do it at a gala or exclusive restaurant. He asked her in the hospital cafeteria at 2 a.m. over mediocre coffee and shared memories, in the place where they had first seen each other clearly, and Olivia said yes, not to a billionaire's lifestyle, but to a life built on understanding what truly held value, a lesson they had taught each other.